So this is one of those announcements that immediately makes you stop scrolling and go, wait, is this real? Because Final Fantasy XIV is officially crossing over with Evangelion in a brand new event titled Ghost of Desire. And I'm going to be honest with you. This is one of the most unexpected crossover announcements we've seen in a long time. Not just for this game, but for the industry as a whole. Not because Final Fantasy XIV doesn't do crossovers. It absolutely does. But because Evangelion is such a specific, heavy, and stylistically unique property that bringing it into Eorzea raises a lot of questions and a lot of potential. To understand why this is such a big deal, you have to look at what both of these properties represent. Final Fantasy XIV has spent the better part of the last decade building itself into one of the most respected MMORPGs on the market. It's known for deep storytelling, emotional character arcs, and expansions that don't just add content. They redefine the experience. On the other side, you have Neon Genesis Evangelion, a series that isn't just influential, it's legendary. Evangelion isn't just about giant robots fighting monsters. It's about identity, trauma, human connection, and the psychological cost of existence itself. It's dense, symbolic, and at times deeply unsettling. So when you hear these two are crossing over, your first instinct might be confusion. But the more you think about it, the more it starts to make sense. Final Fantasy XIV has already proven that it can handle darker, more introspective storytelling. If you played through expansions like Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers or Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, you already know this game isn't afraid to get heavy. It explores themes like sacrifice, despair, hope, and what it means to keep going when everything feels lost. Those themes line up surprisingly well with what Evangelion has always been about. So instead of this feeling like a random mashup, there's actually a strong foundation for this to work on a narrative level. Now let's talk about the event itself. Ghost of Desire. That title alone tells you they're not just going for a surface level crossover. That sounds like something pulled straight out of Evangelion's DNA. It suggests introspection, internal conflict, maybe even manifestations of characters' inner struggles. If Square Enix is leaning into that tone, this could end up being one of the most thematically ambitious crossover events they've ever done. And that's where things start to get really interesting. Because the biggest question here isn't just what are we getting, it's how are they going to implement it? If this is just a standard limited time event with a short quest line and some cosmetics, that's fine. But it would feel like a missed opportunity. Evangelion thrives on atmosphere and psychological tension. Imagine if instead of traditional enemies, we get encounters inspired by angels. Abstract, massive, and almost incomprehensible in design. Boss fights that just don't test your mechanics, but completely mess with your expectations. Visuals that feel surreal, almost dreamlike, pushing the boundaries of what Final Fantasy XIV usually does. That kind of design would instantly set this event apart. And then there's the potential for storytelling. Final Fantasy XIV's biggest strength has always been how it connects you to its world and characters. If they integrate Evangelion's themes into that framework, even in a limited capacity, you could end up with something that sticks with players long after the event is over. Not just because it was cool, but because it actually meant something. Of course, we can't talk about a crossover without talking about rewards because let's be real, that's a huge part of the appeal. And this is where expectations are sky high. If you're doing Evangelion, you have to go all in. That means plug suits. That means weapon designs inspired by EVA units. That means mounts that feel like they came straight out of the series. If they somehow manage to incorporate something resembling Unit 01 into this game, even as a stylized mount, that alone would be enough to get people logging in immediately. But here's the thing. Final Fantasy XIV has a strong track record with crossover rewards. They usually don't phone it in. They go out of their way to make sure the items feel authentic to the source material while still fitting into the game's world. So there's a very good chance they're going to deliver on that front. Now let's address the other side of this because not everyone is going to be on board with this kind of crossover. There are always players who prefer the game to stay within its own universe, who feel like collaborations, especially ones this stylistically different, can break immersion, and that's a fair concern. Evangelion has a very distinct aesthetic, and if it's not handled carefully, it could feel out of place. But again, this is where Final Fantasy XIV has earned a bit of trust. They've done crossovers before that seemed like they shouldn't work on paper, and then somehow made them fit. They understand tone, they understand pacing, and they understand how to respect the source material while still keeping the integrity of their own world intact. So the success of this event is really going to come down to execution. If they treat it like a checklist, quick quest, flashy rewards, and move on, it'll be forgettable. But if they actually embrace what makes Evangelion special, its tone, its themes, its atmosphere, this could end up being one of the most unique crossover events the game has ever seen. And from a bigger picture perspective, this announcement says a lot about where Final Fantasy XIV is right now. This is a game that's confident enough in its identity to take risks like this, to collaborate with something as unconventional as Evangelion and not just make it work, but potentially elevate both properties in the process. Because let's be honest, nobody saw this coming. And sometimes those are the collaborations that end up being the most memorable. So yeah, Final Fantasy XIV Cross Evangelion Ghost of Desire. It's bold, it's unexpected, and has a ton of potential. Now we just have to wait and see if it delivers. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Are you excited for this crossover, or are you a little skeptical about how it's going to turn out? And what would you want to see from this event to make it truly worth your time? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. And if you want to support the channel even further, check out my Patreon. My latest exclusive goes deep into why games keep launching broken and why no one seems to stop it. The link is down in the description below. Thanks for watching, and as always, game on.